Welcome to Beyond the Billboard, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of out-of-home advertising. I'm Greg Wise, and I've spent years helping brands navigate the world of marketing and media planning.
And I'm Charlie Riley. I've spent 2 decades leading marketing teams who've pondered the same question about out-of-home. If you're a growth-focused marketer looking for data-driven ways to stand out, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to Beyond the Billboard. We're back again with another episode. I'm Charlie Riley, head of marketing at OneScreen, who's powering this podcast, not just this episode. I'm joined by my co-host, the co-founder of OneScreen, and our resident out-of-home guru, Greg Wise. And we're joined by a special guest, David Kirkdorffer, a marketing consultant who we've chatted back and forth with, but we're excited to talk on a couple things, LLMs. We won't get into some of our soccer fandom, but we're excited to have him on. We're excited to chat about brand marketing, what he's been up to, and how that ties into what we do here at OneScreen. So David, thanks for joining us. Maybe just give the audience a little bit of background about what you're up to.
Charlie, thank you for the intro, and hi, pleased to meet you, Greg. Myself, yes, so my name is David Kirkdorffer. I'm based in Boston. I've been doing B2B technology marketing pretty much all my career, which at this point is beginning to add up to something. And I have been often in the organization, in the part of marketing that has to do with demand generation and creating more business opportunities for sales teams. Over the years, that's meant different types of motions, of course. And currently, I'm helping companies with their approach to LLMs. How are brands being found and discovered in ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, and Perplexity, for example? My opinion, my belief, my thesis is that this is the new discoverability venue. And so I'm helping CMOs and their teams in technology businesses primarily is who I'm connected with, because given that's my background, what they can do to assist and facilitate more successful mentions in those venues, in those LLMs, because I believe that this is really the place where a battle needs to be fought. It is not just SEO. It is a multidisciplinary challenge, involves the entire marketing team. So anyway, not to go into that too much, but to say that's where I've been spending a bunch of time, because we're all looking for how do we generate more business? How do we increase the visibility of our brand? The go-to-market of 2023 doesn't work as well in 2026. So what are we doing today to prepare for tomorrow? That's essentially the question.
Greg's excited because he's been saying that, I think, on every episode. And I think the correlation to what you are trying to help marketers learn about from a search standpoint is very interesting and very relatable to what we do here at OneScreen, which we're helping find new sales opportunities and brand opportunities through out-of-home advertising. So I think there's a lot of correlation there. Can you talk about what prompted some of this? Or obviously, like you're seeing, this is a hot topic. We're all trying to figure it out. I think in the same sense that we're working with marketers, they're all trying to figure out how to reduce customer acquisition costs. They're trying to reduce just digital noise. What are you seeing the biggest challenges that marketers are facing right now? I think you're solving one of them, but it sounds like it's just an overarching need to help deliver sales. And it's, like you said, it's more challenging than ever from a couple of years ago.
So what got me into this is a great question. So as I mentioned, I was in demand gen. I've been focused on trying to raise visibility. I've worked in lots and lots of startups. And the existential question is, how do we get more business so we can stay in business? And I have done all the playbooks over the years. And I saw starting in, 2016, 15, 14, lower returns on the activity. Marketing for B2B has spent a lot of time trying to get people to register for things so that we could uncover your names and contact details so that we could say, yay, we found the EVP of compliance. And that was a win back in 2000 because getting the contact details was actually hard. But starting around, 14, 13, 16, depending on your market a little bit, databases of these contacts became available. That wasn't really adding much value for marketing. And I noticed that my campaigns were somewhat crashing, if you will. I might get interest. People might come to the website, but then they somewhat crashed, I would use that term, on the website. They didn't like the messaging, or something about what they thought we were talking about didn't match. So I started talking about buyer enablement and trying to put onto the website all of the information that a buyer might want to have so that they could answer the critical questions that they have on their minds to select us, right? Where we are trying to help the buyer feel confident that when they stick their hand up and say, hey, I want to talk to you guys, that we are a good fit for their situation. And there are some questions, I've got a framework about that. But so I said, let's take all this sales enablement stuff and basically make it available on the web to put a shortcut to the whole thing, right? Make it freely available. Don't gate it behind a sales rep relationship. It's great content. It's supposed to help everyone, but we can't see it until we talk to a sales rep. And I don't want to talk to a sales rep. We've learned, and Kerry Cunningham over at Sixth Sense has helped quantify some of these statistics that we've all had a feeling for, that buyers are doing a lot of their research before they raise their hand. And a lot of the people who are in the selection set, the consideration set of who they're going to talk to, the first vendor contacted, 74%, it's something like this, is likely to be the winner. And this is all established before anyone's talked to us. So this buyer enablement became really important. Along come AIs, and now our buyer and our website are being disintermediated. Now, buyers are going to ask LLMs questions. Hey, this is my context, this is my situation. They're loading up gobs of information, not just a few words, and asking the LLM, who should I be considering, and what kind of things should I be thinking of, and what questions might I want to ask as I try to determine if this is a good fit for me. Now, visibility in LLMs becomes really important. I would suggest an LLM is like an analyst or an influencer. They are curating pieces of information, choosing what to share based on the relevance to the question, and then turning it up, showing the information. And we want to make sure that our brands are part of that, right? So anyway, so that's a long answer, but AI enablement for me is the new venue for winning business, because if I don't show up there in a relevant manner, I might not be visible at all because people aren't doing Google searches and looking at things. You can build your own magic quadrant nowadays with deep research that's available for $20 a month. That's a lot cheaper than a Gartner subscription. So anyway, that's a bit of a long answer, I think, but perhaps it helps answer how did I get into this? Is because I'm thinking demand generation still.
I think there's always the argument of brand versus demand generation, but what you're talking about is a lot of building a brand, because for LLM search, brand references is a big trigger there to show up higher. But we're seeing a lot of marketers, smart marketers, who realize that, or they've always realized this, is just informing the rest of the organization that brand is important to be in that consideration set when they're doing their homework, so that you're in the, I think Winter talks a lot about this, of they already know who the top three are that they're going to choose. So like, how do you get into that consideration set? Brand is huge for that. You're talking a lot about demand gen, but it's really brand marketing.
I think the line between the two becomes fuzzier all the time. I think that when I asked Pet, what is the difference between brand marketing and demand, and the first thing he said, and the thing that I retain is, in brand marketing, there's no call to action. I'm like, okay, then I've been doing brand marketing almost all my career, because starting back in that 2013, 14, 15 timeframe, my nurture campaigns, all those pesky emails that would be sent out after you attended the webinar or came to the trade show booth, right? I removed call to action. I said, look, I know I've been in this game long enough. I'm at a startup. It's a new idea for them. They're not budgeted for a thing like this. They're not quite sure where it fits, but they want to know about it. So nurturing is providing contextually relevant information to help educate, inform, and inspire them, so that when they are ready to do something, they know who we are. So my nurturing campaigns went on for like 18 months. Not every week. I do a couple of weeks and go away for a bit, and then do a couple more and then go away for a bit. And at one point I said, I know that my goal is not for them to respond to me, because they know how to find me whenever they want to find me, right? So I took out, and then there was also the whole thing about, if you put links in there, does that put you into a spam bucket and so on? So I said, send out non-HTML emails, just text emails and no links. Because ultimately, if I'm helping educate and inform, that is a kind of demand generation. Just, I'm not asking for you. I'm not saying, please come and visit my website. I'm saying, we're here when you want to come and visit the website. And I'm trying to, if you don't come to the website, I'm going to keep giving you pieces of information that I think are helpful to shape your thoughts and education around this topic. I want to evangelize around the problem, and then you'll associate me with the solution. And then when it's time for you to do a thing, you'll come to me.
Do you want to run your own account-based marketing program, but you're feeling overwhelmed by complex jargon, expensive tech stacks, and unclear strategies? Scrappy ABM Podcast offers proven strategies and actionable plays that you can use to get started with quick wins. Learn at your own pace, simplify ABM to start seeing real results. Visit Scrappy ABM Podcasts or tune into the Scrappy ABM Show wherever you listen to podcasts. Like you were talking about, 18 months, you might have a very long sales cycle, but you don't, in that email example, you don't have a massive canvas to tell a full story, and nor should you in that, because you have short attention spans. Very similar to probably what we see with out of home. If you have a billboard on the side of the thruway, you've got 6 seconds. So it's not about telling an entire story or driving them to a certain page.
That's right.
It's that recall. So they see that enough times that when they are ready to buy, or they go when they're in their safe spot to search on Google or on an LLM, that's a way to actually track some of that effectiveness. But they're finding you because they're searching for that brand after the fact. They're intrigued. You can't tell the whole thing, but if there's enough of a story there to intrigue and to provide a little bit of kind of wonder, that's kind of what those mediums do. Like an email campaign, an out-of-home campaign, similar. It's driving brand, and eventually that, like you said, the lines are blurred a little bit. But I think there's a lot of correlation there.
Yes, no, I would agree. Any good brand campaign is going to have a couple of platform elements, right? And you're going to try and repeat messaging that relate to a limited number of themes so that you can focus what you're talking about and so that you can be remembered for a focused number of. So maybe in the IT space, where I do a lot of my marketing consulting, it's to do with security, it's to do with more with less, it's to do with integrating with existing platforms that you already have, it's to do with showing how ROI is experienced, the types of questions. So as with any good branding, we want to link our solution to situations that we believe we want our solution to be remembered with. So situation, I use the term situations, could be particular pains that we address, to use that old language, right? Or visions that we're trying to attach ourselves to, right? Future ways that people might be thinking of things. Then if I can establish that connection between my brand, my capabilities, and that situation, then that memorability, hopefully, if the brand activity is successful, there's some memorability. Without memorability, it's difficult to justify, and so on. But to get back to the billboard side of things, physical presence is valuable today, we know, right? So in our modern world, where we are overwhelmed with what we might call digital communications across the phone calls that we don't answer. My other screen here is all the emails that I've received today and all the spam emails I've received today. Let's see, how many have I received today? So far, only 16. The day is young.
The day is young,
right? And that's just, and then there's the ones that didn't get flagged as spam that came through nevertheless. So being present in the day-to-day experience of our buyers is harder because they have got tools as well to filter us out. And I think that what you offer with billboards is quite unique, because if they're done well, we don't necessarily filter them out. We're out and about and we're doing things. It's not a digital medium that we can have an app review and say good or bad, put it in this box or that box. It's right there.
Even if it's like subconsciously viewing a billboard or a transit ad or a bus wrap, whatever that might be, you can't turn that off. So I think that's the power of repetition there, like you talked about, to see that over and over again. And then that recall comes back. There's enough studies to show the number of impressions someone needs to see now, because we're all inundated, is going up and up. So to add that in a real world environment where it cannot be turned off, again, even if it's subconscious, it's, oh, I remember that brand, or I remember that color. I can associate that color with this category. What was that again? And then they go search for it, and then they go down the rabbit hole, hopefully, of when they're ready to buy. I think there's a lot of correlation there.
And that's the point. Real world ads or not, it's a coordinated approach, and it's a story. It is storytelling. And it's so cliche because we've been talking about storytelling and marketing for so long, but I think people overthink it. Like, how do you tell that story across multiple touch points, which includes digital, it includes things like out of home, it can include email, and each touch point can serve a different purpose, right? It's, you ultimately want to pull people through the sales funnel, right? But the whole point is that each of those canvases does deserve a different part of that story.
We have different kind of filters for how we take in different information through different mediums, is right? We're hypercritical of emails and phone calls. We've become really sensitive to claims. But because we're at our desk in work brain mode. And so we need to be, we're in our kind of peak thinking, which oftentimes is, I don't know how to put this exactly, boxed in thinking. Let me explain what I mean. I used to work when we used to go to an office, I used to work downtown in Boston. And sometimes I would just take my laptop and go to one of the local hotels, which would just be like half a block away, and sit in the lobby and work there. Because I found that when I went to a different place, it opened up my brain to somewhat different thinking a little bit. I don't know why. That way that we go on holiday and we have some cool ideas because we're somehow in a different context and we think differently maybe. So the potential for out-of-home advertising is that you're catching people when they're not in their peak moment. And so if you could drop a cool idea that strikes a moment with them, people might be more receptive. I don't have any science to back this up. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, or I don't know if I would recommend this in any way, but I just observe in my own behavior that when I'm in different places, I have more open-mindedness, perhaps, less filtering out because I'm being bombarded with certain information when I'm sitting at my desk. But when I'm not, maybe I'm more receptive because I'm not less defensive, perhaps. There's an aspect of things there. The other thing that's really cool about billboard type advertising and out of home advertising, as you say, wraps and buses, is people often, if they're commuting, have routines. So they're going to see things repeatedly. Their drive to work might have them stop at different stoplights along the way, but over a period of a month, they're going to have stopped at all of them a little bit, right? And it's generally the same path, and you get on the same bus, and you stand in the same places. And so that repetition can get built in. And if you're telling a story, if you can think in terms perhaps of cartoon panels, perhaps over the period of 2 weeks, you get to tell a chapter of your story. I don't know.
I love the way you just put that, actually, which is the context in which you are receiving the message matters. And we talk about, look, out of home, it's so unique because you can leverage audience plus the context in which the physical asset is in, right? And even around moments in time, because it is much more tangible in nature. It's finite in nature. There's less variables to consider. Hey, a digital ad, you might actually experience that on your phone. And you could quite literally be anywhere in the world doing anything when you receive that message. With out of home, it's a pretty good chance what the person is doing or the people are doing, where the asset is physically located in a specific area, especially when it's around a certain moment in time, an event or whatever it is. But I think you're absolutely right. It's thinking about where the person literally will be when that message is received. And if it's Tuesday at 10:30 and it's an email blast, most likely they're going to be at their desk. So what does that mean for the message that you're sending, right? Because like, I don't have time to read that. And if I do, it better be damn good, right? Because I'm doing 100 things at 10:30 on a Tuesday.
Well, I think that goes to the planning side of how we think about this for clients, is that we can hone in on putting the ad where we think the best opportunity is for the audience. They want to see that. So there is a strategy side to it. But what you were just talking about is the creative side of matching that up. So you know the environment they'll be in, like you said, if it's commuting to work every day. But how cool would that be? And you have the ability to do this with digital out of home, but like you're changing the creative maybe based on the weather or based on a sports team and like how that rallies the community. But there are ways to do that when you're continually telling a story. I think we see this with companies that buy the same billboard location and they rotate the creative, but you know it's going to be there, and you're almost anticipating then what that next that cheeky creative is or what that unique messaging is going to be. But I think that's where you build brand trust, you build some consistency. I think that's an interesting way to think about that.
When we had big sales deals at companies where I was working at, where we had the means, I would investigate local advertising that would be present to raise our profile in that geography. what you can do with billboards is obviously more than just billboards, is establish a kind of a surround message for your brand and the situation specifically that you believe is pertinent to that sales activity in that region. And you can help educate. We know that the more our brand is already known to an audience and understood, the more likely we are to become part of a consideration set. But once we're in the consideration set, we don't stop there. Our presence is being watched, has an impact during the sales cycle and even after the sales cycle, right? There's the whole buyer's remorse. We had to pick something at this point. Did we pick the right thing? I hope we did, because my name is on the line here with this particular purchase that we made. So this ability to hyper-target locations, it seems as if it would be super powerful for a lot of certainly enterprise accounts. And my thinking is so focused on B2B technology. So my apologies to the audience if it's like, oh, stop talking about that. Well, that's what I'm here for. I talk about that.
Well, some of the brands we work with, we use out of home for them as an ABM play. And I think that there's executions there that, like you said, that hyper targeting, even going back to your example of cybersecurity and technology, those decision makers, depending on who you're trying to talk to, will not click an email. They won't click a link in an email. So out of home is a great play there because they can avoid that. And I think that's where, when you work on the targeting and you work on really figuring out where the best locations are, that's when it can be effective. I think there's definitely some execution with that.
Imagine I'm a CMO. I'm thinking of how I'm going to plan for the next 6 months, trying to do both branding, because I know that's a thing I need to build up my brand so that in the future people know who I am and I'm appropriate for their situations. But I also need to bring in demand generation today. It's the existential problem, as we say. And if I have a dip in performance on that side, it's going to look at me somewhat sharply. So how do you tie your activity to something that's measurable? And what are the measures that you find that your clients are picking up on and saying, yeah, that's working because I can tell, in ways that are both, at the beginning, theory, because it takes a little while for something to build, I would imagine, and then pragmatic, because we're seeing it in our pipeline, if you will. How do you tie it to ROI, if you will? And then how do you tie it to other campaigns? So as a marketer, I've got campaigns running, I've got messaging running, I've got things I'm doing, and I know that the more they're all integrated together, supporting each other, the better. So how do you, I guess the first question is execution-wise, how do I tie it in? And then measurement-wise, how do I prove that it's working?
The tying in piece, Charlie, I'll start off. The tying in piece, look, we believe in the ideology of rising tide lifts all boats, right? So it should be cohesive with the other pieces of your marketing channel, right? If you're a CMO at a B2B company, the first thing we really want to know, and these situations can be unique, but is there a target account approach to this, an ABM element to this, a product launch announcement? Do we have tiered accounts, tier 1 accounts, 2 accounts? Are we trying to break into new accounts, expand within existing accounts? What other channels are you doing? Are you doing other offline channels? Is there direct mail involved? Are you doing radio? Are you doing CTV? Heck, are you doing linear TV? Mm-hmm. All things that we want to take into account. And then also, where are you doing those things? What markets are you doing those things? Like, ideally, we align the out-of-home campaign with the other components that they're doing, and the creative and the messaging should all align, right? They should look different on an out-of-home asset, right? Like we talked about before, on a giant billboard, on a major highway when people are going 80 miles per hour, it's got to be simple versus a LinkedIn ad that can certainly tell a longer story. In terms of then the output and how to measure success. So a couple things. One, literally, it's getting feedback from the sales team, right? That's number one. And so if the objective was to break into new accounts, did the billboard and the out-of-home campaign actually help provide air cover for those accounts? When you cold called into the account, were they familiar with who you are? Were they more receptive to have a conversation? Did any of the deals within your pipeline actually get accelerated? And did those folks actually anecdotally mention the fact that, hey, wow, it seems like you guys are everywhere? We always like to tell folks, when you do out of home, it is not direct response. So you are not going to necessarily launch on a billboard campaign today and refresh a dashboard tomorrow. It's just inherently different than the digital marketing landscape. And so it is a more holistic, did this work type of problem that you're solving. Branded keyword search, right? So you talked about how folks are going to be found on things like ChatGPT going forward. It's going to be by their brand name, right? What's one way to drive more searches for a brand name? Doing brand work, right? And out of home is probably like numero uno as it pertains to doing brand work, right? As Charlie mentioned, is who was that? That purple billboard with that name, I'm going to go search for it. That's how this is going to go moving forward. And then all of that just helps make the rest of the funnel more impactful. We also want to know what do conversion rates look like on the website now? What does traffic in that particular market look like now? Implement out of home, and then we look at what happens during, we look after what happened after. So there's those elements. Social amplification as well. That is certainly a big component of how out of home can be measured. Even though we're talking about the real world, there's still the real world also bleeds into the digital with the ability to share socially. And this is nascent. People love to share the fact that they're doing billboards or that they're on a billboard. And so there's a lot of virality in that as well. But put it this way, very rarely, actually, I've never heard this from a B2B customer of ours, that it didn't work at all. It's usually one or multiple components of what I just said that has gone up and to the right. And sometimes it's as literal as we just closed 3 new deals, and these people legitimately said they found us from a billboard.
Yeah. And just to add one thing, and Greg summed that up excellently, but like one thing that we can do to help with that is we're doing that measurement against control groups. Those that were exposed, the way Greg was describing it, those that were exposed to those ads through an out-of-home channel or out-of-home campaign versus those who were not exposed. And we can show lift there, or we can show variance there. But yeah, like Greg said, maybe going back to those tech examples, that target account list you have, how many meetings did you have with your target account list in correlation to the number of companies that were exposed to an out-of-home campaign, things like that. So it really varies, but there's a lot of ways that Greg just talked about that different companies want to measure a different way. And we really didn't even get into the B2C or D2C brands, because there's some different things there in terms of how they want to drive foot traffic into stores, for example, and other ways to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to measure success with that. It really depends on what they're looking for.
And we could dive into that on part 2, David.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
That is the right question. And I'll wrap it up this way, which is, as we're thinking about the fact that the 2023 playbook, as you put so well in the beginning of this conversation, is not the same playbook as 2025. Part of that is every dollar in is not going to have a specific dollar out within a specific time frame. It's over. That is over. And so we all just have to be comfortable with that, right? Because it may not be as linear as it used to be. We were spoiled for a decade there, where it was like we could calculate how much into the machine and how much out of the machine in almost any channel that we did. Not the way anymore. And so we're getting there. We're getting there. It's the right question. But Dave, this has been a great conversation. Where can folks find you that are listening here that want to interact with what you're up to?
So to find me, I'm on LinkedIn quite actively. I am the only David Kirkdorffer that I'm aware of that I think exists on the planet. I'll spell my last name because it's a bit of a tongue twister. That's Kirk, D for David, O-R, F as in Frank, E-R. If you search for David Kirkdorffer, you'll find me on LinkedIn. If I can be helpful in my marketing capacity, that's great. It'd be wonderful to have some conversations. I'm certainly curious to figure out for myself the in the field kind of advertising that you guys enable can tie back to LLMs, right? That's a curiosity. I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure there are tiebacks, and I'm wondering how to bring the two together, because you'd think maybe there isn't any way to bring them together. But that would be, I think, pretty powerful, because so much learning is happening in that venue. And it would be pretty cool if you could somehow help direct people from the billboard to a learning on LLMs, because that's what they're doing anyway. So somehow figuring out how to connect the two might be an interesting thing. So anyway, cool. Great conversation.
Absolutely. That's part 2. I love that topic. David, this has been great. And for myself and Charlie, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Billboard. And we look forward to the next episode. We've got a lot of great guests coming up. And make sure you reach out to David. David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Billboard.
If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And if you found value today, share this with a fellow marketer who should be thinking bigger about out-of-home advertising.
If you're looking for a template to build your out-of-home program, visit onescreen.ai to get a free media plan or connect with us on LinkedIn for all the latest out-of-home insights.
This has been Beyond the Billboard. We'll see you next time.